Black Ops Chapter 8. Uncle John, Aunt Shelley, and Rita got home at about 7 in the morning. All three of them collapsed into bed. Rita had to go see the doctors at Foot Rutgar again on Thursday afternoon, but all three felt like they could relax for the first time in months. Rita was going to be stuck with her broken arm for several weeks. That didn't stop her and Jason from enjoying prom, and graduation was approaching fast. The trio showed up at the school ready for graduation. "I can't believe this is it," Rita said nervously. "It's so exhilarating," Aunt Shelley said excitedly. "You better get over there. They are about ready to start." Rita left and met up with Jason and her friends. Everyone lined up and processed into the gym. Rita and Jason sat in the front row with the other honors graduates and waited as the dignitaries spoke. "Now," Mr. Buxton began, "I have the pleasure of introducing you to the class valedictorian, Rita Thomas." Cheers could be heard from the friends in her class and in the crowd. Rita walked up the steps to the podium. "Thank you, Mr. Buxton," Rita started. She looked up at the sea of students before her. "Today we begin our adulthood. We've had an interesting ride along the way, but now we are truly the masters of our own destiny. We have God as our guide. We have what our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles." Rita stopped and waved to Aunt Shelley and Uncle John, much to the amusement of the crowd, "and many friends have helped us learn as we grew up. We have learned heartbreak, tragedy, and most importantly, triumph. They have all taught us what unconditional love is, and we will always carry it with us. Now, it's our turn to bring what we have learned from all these people out to the world. We need to give the world our best selves and become even better. It's our turn to make the world a better place, and a wise woman once said, 'Do that by helping those closest to you first. Touch each person you meet, touch their soul with joy, happiness, but most importantly truth. It's our turn to make our mark.' Now with God's blessings I leave you with this thought from Pope John XXI, men are like wine, some turn to vinegar, but the best improve with age. Be the wine. God bless you all." The crowd cheered. Rita shook Mr. Buxton's hand and returned to her seat. Graduation continued and then finally concluded. Rita met Uncle John and Aunt Shelley and they took all of the obligatory photos. Rita sighed and smiled at Aunt Shelley and Uncle John. "What is it?" Uncle John asked with a smile. "Short of having my parents here, I couldn't imagine anything better," she smiled at them. "You don't know how much I have appreciated the last several years." Uncle John and Aunt Shelley walked over and hugged her. "We have loved every minute of it," Aunt Shelley declared. "We are going to be lost when you leave," Uncle John stated. "I won't have a running partner." They laughed as Jason came running over. "Guess what?" Jason excitedly asked her. "What?" Rita questioned him. "My mom and dad gave me a car." "No way." "Ride with me to the restaurant?" Jason asked her. "Y'all be careful," Uncle John shouted as they ran off. "We'll meet you there." The two ran to the parking lot and admired the blue Focus. "This is so awesome," Rita said in awe. "I know," Jason said as he let his hands slide on the edge of the hood. "Come on, let's ride." The two hopped in and cruised to the restaurant. They had a nice dinner with family and friends. It was a fanciful end to a wondrous afternoon. Jason and Rita packed up his car with their bags and waited for their friends to join them. Jason handed them all maps and the crew headed up to Marvin Parker Lake for a few days. Jason had an uncle who owned a house on the lake, and he was letting them have the run of the place. They all arrived safely and enjoyed all the lake had to offer. They spent a week and returned to Ozark to spend the rest of the summer. Rita and Jason continued working at the bowling alley, both having 3 days off a week. Jason's father made sure their days off were the same. As the summer grew shorter, their love grew stronger. They dreaded the end of the summer, but their day to leave was quickly approaching. She met Uncle John outside on the backyard patio one evening as he grilled some burgers. "Have you heard from Michaels?" He questioned her as he sat in one of the patio chairs. "No, I haven't," she shook her head. "Don't be surprised if he doesn't show," Uncle John explained. "For various reasons he may not be able to make it." "I know," she admitted. "I thought about all that, but I'll have a bag packed and be ready, and if he doesn't, I'll start at Troy in the spring." "The girl is prepared," Uncle John smiled and nodded. "She has a plan B." Rita laughed as Aunt Shelley walked out. "I can't believe it's already the middle of August," Aunt Shelley commented as she sat down. "I know," Rita turned to her and said, "it just seems this summer flew by faster than usual." The three continued talking into the evening as they enjoyed their burgers on the patio. The day to leave arrived too quickly, Rita thought. She walked with Jason to the boarding area along with his parents. Uncle John and Aunt Shelley bid him farewell before he went to the gate. Jason hugged his parents and they bid each other a long goodbye. He soon turned to Rita and they embraced. "You have my address?" he asked. She nodded. "I'll write you as often as I can," she sniveled through her tears. "We'll see each other soon," he held her. "I'll get some leave and you'll get whatever it is you'll get and we'll meet somewhere halfway." "That sounds like a plan," she said as the final boarding call came over the speakers. They shared a long kiss. He gave his parents one last wave and walked to the gate. She watched his flight take off and soon met Uncle John and Aunt Shelley near the security checkpoint. The three walked out of the terminal entrance and looked up to see Michaels standing next to their car. Uncle John stopped her. "Rita," he started, and she could see him beginning to cry. "Part of me was hoping he wouldn't come." "Honey, it's just that we're not ready to let you go just yet," Aunt Shelley admitted. "Part of me isn't ready to go, but the other part of me wants to run there on foot," Rita expressed. "We love you," Uncle John said and embraced her. He let go and Aunt Shelley took her turn. "I love y'all too, but this is the rest of my life calling," she explained to the two. "We know, honey," Aunt Shelley said as Uncle John walked over and got her bag out of the car. "I'll talk to y'all soon." She grabbed her bag from Uncle John. They waved one last time and she walked with Michaels to his car. "You'll be able to call them every few days or so," he explained as they started on their way. Rita nodded and they headed on their way. Rita and Jason both went through their trainings. They did write each other as often as they could and did get a couple of weekends together. Jason was done with his training and the two talked briefly one night and discovered they had the weekend off. They met up in Virginia Beach. She sat at a booth in the back of the restaurant waiting for him to arrive. "Ma'am, I couldn't help but notice you were sitting here alone." A fine-looking Marine walked up to her. "I hope not to be real soon." She looked up at Jason and smiled. He sat next to her in the booth and they shared a passionate kiss. "I need to tell you something," she whispered in his ear as he kissed her neck. "What is it?" He mumbled as he continued. "Someone is following me," she giggled. He looked at her and smiled. "You think it's a test?" She said as they lingered close to each other. "They are sitting at the corner of the bar." "You know I've been training too?" he asked. "After basic they sent me." "I sorta guessed." They kissed again. "How's that?" "They have been training me mostly to work with a partner." She looked up at him and smiled. "That's good to know," he said as he kissed her neck again. "Back to my hotel room?" she asked him. He looked at her and grinned. The two made it arm in arm to her room and fell in the room holding each other as they kissed. They closed the door and pulled the drapes shut. The men following Rita sighed. "That'll be all we see from her until morning," one man said to the other. "If we're lucky," the other man retorted as they sat and watched the room. Rita and Jason then climbed into the crawl space between the floors, through the air duct. "What do you need to get?" Jason asked her as they made their way to the service area. "A picture of the men watching me, or us rather," she grinned at Jason. "What's your assignment?" "To help you," he grinned. "Let's see how that works." She stretched over to kiss him. "Let's get to work, Miss Thomas." Jason smiled at her. The two made their way back outside and to the street close enough to get the picture and get back. They returned to the room and Jason decided to linger for a few hours. They talked about what they had done since they last saw each other, mostly anyway. "I better get going," Jason informed her as he stood up. "Why don't you just stay until morning?" Rita asked him. He leaned over and kissed her longingly. "That might be dangerous." "It doesn't have to be all that." She grabbed his hand. "I just want to be near you." Jason moved in close to her and embraced her. The two spent the night talking and catching up. The next morning, she and Jason went to meet her contact. They walked into the restaurant in the morning and sat to eat. She pulled out her cell phone and set it on the table. A constant flow of customers came in and out the restaurant, while the two ordered their food and ate. They enjoyed the meal and soon left, I thought you had a meet there? Jason asked her. I did. She smiled over at him. Why didn't you meet? I did. She looked over at him and smiled. You're good. Jason put his arm across her shoulders. She and Jason continued enjoying their weekend together with the great company who needed the beach. It was March, so it was still a little cool, but the sight of each other was a much better prospect. She and Jason soon had to say their goodbyes, and she headed to Norfolk to meet with one of her instructors. She arrived at Naval Station Norfolk and was instructed to go to a location on base. She was soon there and was escorted to a room in the building. Waiting for her was her instructor, Mr. Garrett and Michaels. Rita, Michaels smiled, you did well. You were the only one who didn't get caught, Michaels mentioned. You were right about something, Mr. Garrett revealed. You are going to have a partner. Here's your new partner, Mr. Garrett informed her and opened the door to another room. She walked in and saw Jason. Jay! She yelled and threw her arms around him. You guys need to complete more training, but you'll be doing it together, Mr. Garrett informed them. They went through another year and a half worth of training and were eager for their first assignment. You guys have some leave, Mr. Garrett ordered. Go home and visit with your families for a few weeks. You will be busy once you get started. He looked at them as they gathered their things in the training room. Be back on October 3rd. It was almost a month's worth of time. Yes, sir, they both said and left to pack a bag. Rita left the car she had bought parked in front of her apartment, and the two packed up Jason's car and headed to southern Alabama. Jason dropped her off at Uncle John and Aunt Shelley's and headed to his mom and dad's. Uncle John, Aunt Shelley? Rita called out as she walked in. Rita? She heard Aunt Shelley yell from the back of the house. Rita, you're home. I'm here to visit for a little while, Rita informed Aunt Shelley as they hugged. I have to call Uncle John, Aunt Shelley said as she picked up the phone. She dialed the number and waited for him to answer. John, could you swing by the house? She listened to him. Yeah, I found something I think you would want to see. She hung up and looked across the kitchen counter at Rita. He'll be here in 5 minutes. The two chatted as they waited for Uncle John to get home. He soon came to the carport door and walked in. What's going on, Shelley? John said and walked to the fridge. Hey Rita, how's it going? He opened the door to the fridge as the ladies snickered. Rita! He walked around the counter and hugged her. How long are you in? I don't have to be back until October 3rd, so almost a month, Rita reported. I'll take off as much time as I can while you're in. John was excited to see her. The three caught up and John arranged to have vacation and comp time while Rita was in. Jason made it to his mom and dad's, and the two families decided to gather at Uncle John and Aunt Rita's for a cookout and a little celebration a few days later. The group gathered and was enjoying the evening. You all right? Rita asked Jason as they sat in the swing. Yeah, why? Jason questioned nervously. You just seem a little nervous, Rita admitted. No, I'm just trying to get used to being at home again. Jason chuckled uneasily. All right, Rita didn't quite believe him but let it slide. The night continued and the group enjoyed the evening. Jason's mom and dad left late in the evening, and Uncle John and Aunt Rita turned in, and the young couple sat enjoying the star-filled sky as they chatted. Rita, Jason seemed to turn serious. I couldn't imagine loving another woman as much as I love you. You are truly my best friend. Jason then got up and got down on one knee. Rita began shaking and crying. Will you be my best friend for life? He pulled a ring box out of his pocket. Marry me. Rita put her arms around his neck. Yes. She whispered as she cried. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her. I talked to Father Charles, and he said due to the circumstances we could get married before we left, Jason disclosed. I guess we just need to let everyone know. Rita smiled and snuggled close to him. The two then told everyone, and the plans were rolled out quickly. The two decided that they would have the wedding the day before they left, and it went off without a hitch. She watched as Uncle John and Aunt Shelley cried while Uncle John walked her down the aisle. They bid their family and friends goodbye and left on the journey that is the rest of their lives. Thank you for listening to Black Ops. Please subscribe for more stories to come.